So it's great to see everybody here. It's Daniela speaking at the moment, and I'd like to welcome you all to the Australian Council for Adult Literacy AGM and webinar. And I'd now like to hand over to Vicky Hartman, who's going to introduce Lydia and the webinar that's coming up. So thanks, Vicky.
Thank you, Daniela. I'd like to introduce Lidia Lipkiewicz, who has for a long time had a passion for working with adults when she first began as a TAFE lecturer in 1995, where she began working with a group of disengaged youth who came from some of the most disadvantaged areas of Australia. I'm not going to go too much into it, but I'm really keen and eager to hear about her presentation involving Planner Project. It was a weekly based program and was specifically designed for EALD ESOL learners who were also, job seekers. So thank you and welcome, Lydia.
Hi everybody, it's Lydia here. Thank you so much for joining us today. There is a lot to share, and like how does one cram 2 years, but really it's closer to 20 years work into 20 minutes. Basically you don't, so please don't worry if I skim through a couple of the pages from the presentation, which may be a little bit heavy with the text, because Anna's assured me that she will provide people with copies of attachments which I've created just so that you can have a look more at leisure. And there will be an interactive component. I'll be doing this a little bit differently, only because of the time constraint, and also the fact that we're using the webinar forum. I'll talk about this now because otherwise I'll rush through it and I'll forget. I've included my email address at the end of the PowerPoint, and also I'm a VET ambassador, and as such I am a VET alumni, and so there are 2 ways that you're able to contact me. And can I just say, look, I've had a couple of people email me, they want more information. I've had Polytech Uni just recently say, hey, come out, we've got 60 practitioners who may really respond well to what you're doing. We're still working through that one because it's always as to how we fund that, but I do believe that the Australian government does allow or have funds for things like a bit of accommodation, as long as it's reasonable, as well as perhaps a flight or 2 to get people across. But anyhow, that one's in the bag. Yeah. And I am obviously available to run this session, as it is very much part of my VET ambassador role. Before I forget, a huge thank you, Vicky Hartman, for suggesting or recommending that I present this. Thank you, I really appreciate it. To ACAL for having me for this opportunity, and also to Anna for her patience and setting this up. You're amazing. So what's this Planner Project all about? Essentially, I've been working in the C program with, now the South Australian term is ESL, others use ESOL, EALD, TESOL, and depending which state or area you're from. So if I say ESL, that's South Australian. But anyhow, I've been working with a number of different classes, but mainly at the lower level since 2012, and all in the C program, Skills, Employment, Education, or Education Employment. And it was in 2016 that my manager, Janet McMillan, asked myself and another lecturer, and it was a Friday class, and that's one. And as they did, they collapsed classes, so different levels and lots of students. And she asked me and Helenka, this other practitioner, to focus a little bit more on the pathways, the possibilities, jobs, etc. And so I did. And what happened was the students actually started to get jobs. I didn't plan for it to happen. It just happened, and it did get me to reflect a little bit as to what I was doing, perhaps that was a little bit different. And we are talking about the higher ACSF level 1s and working towards 2 and ACSF 2 students. So we're looking at entry-level jobs, but good jobs. So let's have a look at the next slide. And someone once asked me, what are all these pictures about? That's probably a good representation of the last couple of years with my life at TAFE SA, and I've been with them for a good 20-odd years. I guess it's really a combination of things that led to this program. One includes my background, which I don't often share, but I thought it was pretty important to do so. My parents came out in 1948 from a war-torn Europe, and like so many other migrants then and today, they were very, very keen to ensure that their children benefited from the country that they had was their new home, and there was a lot of focus on ensuring that we all got a reasonable education and English, obviously. But they were the two things. Oh, the education, sorry. But the two lessons that I learnt as I grew up was how important a job is to people such as my parents and so many of our students. And I sometimes think we might not really connect with them or really get into their headsets. So it's really, really important. It's definitely one of my top 10 tips, which is get to know your student. Really get to know your student. So the importance of English and having a job has always been with me, and my experience and skill set, which was developed over a 20-year period, came together. As Vicky mentioned, 1996, I think it was, I worked with my first group, disengaged youth, and I nearly threw the towel in. They were difficult. And maybe after 2 weeks, I thought, this is ridiculous. We've got to try something different. Otherwise, I'm not going to come back. I felt threatened during that time. And I thought, no, we've got to try something new. So I, armed with bags of tape measures and poster paper, sticky tape, this is pre-mobile phone days, I just came up with a concept of, and really a bit of a focus on numeracy at the time. What will it take to build a pergola? And it just connected with them. It wasn't all easy, but it was a start, and for the first time we had communication occurring between the students as well as with myself. And so and what I learned then was that they actually led quite a bit of what I was doing, and so it was kind of like from week to week. Can I just include the importance of my colleagues at this stage? After all, it does take a village, and we know that. But anyhow, following that, I spent about 5 years in a certificate to introductory vocational education certificate program, which equipped me with the knowledge that I carry with me since, and it's all about refreshing those literacy, numeracy, language skills. It's about identifying pathways, breaking down barriers, career awareness, resume writing, into everything to do with jobs and helping students. It really was 20 years of experience, my own background, dabbling with project-based stuff or group work throughout my teaching years, and then the knowledge and expertise that I picked up when I worked with a certificate too, with early school leavers, single mums, etc., where I became an expert around job-seeking skills, career awareness, and we had called Organised for Study, which is critical. Now, it doesn't matter which of our students we're working with, being able to help them break down any barriers that they may have to learning and or job seeking is a must. Setting some goals is a must, even if it's as simple as, and some of the ESL or EALD students, they might put down a phrase such as, yep, I would like more English, and then, yes, then some more English, and, well, then maybe I will do a occupational health and safety certificate. You know, that's the sort of stuff that I've been developing over the years, and then with the drama production. And I think what happened was my colleagues around me who saw the level of engagement with, and they were Certificate 2, Certificate 3 level, CEP, that's South Australian curriculum, so pretty advanced, solid to advanced. The feedback was these students learned more English than they did in 11 weeks than they did all year. So seeing and the students' confidence rising, and that it just reaffirmed in me that project-based stuff is the way to go. I'll just move on to the next slide. Let's have a look here. And as I mentioned earlier, it was 2016 when my manager actually asked me, and I'm in the C program, please consider focusing on employment, job-seeking skills, and the rest of it. So I did. And as I said earlier, students over that 2-year period consistently were starting to get jobs, and not all of them. Others had different aspirations and pathways, and of course that was the time when students, once they completed their, I think it was 6 months, then they had to, X number of hours. Oh, help me here, probably 800 hours, that's right. And then they had to stay at home or look for jobs for 6 months, and so it wasn't really conducive to creating a little bit of that culture, whereas I do believe that I did with this, where the content, so you need to think about or imagine, got something to do with jobs or pathways or setting goals, entry-level jobs, the wider job market, government versus private. Each week that was the topic, a topic around one of those, and often led by the students. Every week, and this is critical, it's either group work and or project-based stuff, more about that in a sec. And what was happening is that the skill development as a result of these two, and of course, not forgetting, losing sight of the fact that I'm an English language teacher, so teaching your grammar and whatever you contextualize it as much as you can, and again, I'll come to that in a sec, but the skill development that was occurring was not only language literacy and numeracy, but also employability skill development. How? Let's have a look at the next page. Oh, that's right, and keeping in mind that employability skills, they were everywhere. I still think that it's still a bit of a buzzword, but it was in the former South Australian State Strategic Plan. Term was in all the training packages and curriculum documents, and when I was doing the QSI work, I found it really interesting to see a different practitioners' view on what are employability skills. And of course, I did discover them in the Foundation Skills Professional Standards Framework, and that was at the ACTA conference last year. I think Helen Best, one of our lecturers from Salisbury campus, did a great little session there, and that was last year. But anyhow, that's just about employability skills. But let's look at this. So we've got the 3 elements. How do they actually come together? Now, if I was in a classroom or in a training room, I'd get everyone getting into groups to do a bit of group work, because that is what I do. I've just come from Training Skills Commission, South Australian Training Award winners, that was this morning, and they're having a bit of a PD day, and I'd been asked, well, what were some of your highlights? What are some of your tips? And what is the ambassador all about? And having listened to quite a few people and their approaches, it was quite traditional, and we're talking about this is what we do. Language literacy, numeracy lecturers, teachers, practitioners know that when we're dealing with young people, that they need to get engaged. So out came, it wasn't butcher paper, but it was a little bit of stars, and I tied it in with social media stuff and got them, they were really engaged. So it just shows the power of engagement when instead of listening always to we're teaching others about the importance of methodology, I found, and came away feeling very much on a high because everyone seemed to be very happy. But how do they come together? No butcher paper, I'm sorry, but maybe close your eyes, because I would like you all to participate in this vision, okay? And pretend that you're migrants looking for work, doing your English classes, you're full-time or part-time, doesn't really matter, and that this is one of my classes, and that we've been talking about planning an excursion for a number of weeks, and you are used, just visualise this class, and you're used to working with others in groups. You know, we've sorted group norms, We've made sure that each of the groups have a good representation of skill sets and cultures, and so the group norms are sorted. You're about an ACSF level 1 to 2, so lots of spelling mistakes, lots of grammar work yet to be done, and you are encouraged to use whatever resources are available to you. So just think about, students are engaged. There's one person who wants to do the writing. It's dot points, okay? So what else is there? Oh, that's right. And imagine students getting up from one table and checking out what's happening at someone else's table, and someone else pulling out their mobile phone and researching something quickly, looking for something on their mobile, and books, and everything is available to them. And so you're in this class, and this takes a number of weeks, and I'll do the work for you, but they've been exploring different organisations, companies, businesses that are in the area. So we're kind of looking at doing a little bit of a working excursion and visiting 2 or 3 or maybe even 4 places to see what happens in that workplace. And what your class, this class today, we've chosen St. Vinny's because actually at Salisbury campus there is a St. Vinny's where our students often will be snapped up to do some voluntary work. And it is a process. It's very kind of heavy in terms of the form filling, etc. But nevertheless, so your task, and again, you're in the class, so keep your eyes closed. Don't fall asleep yet because I'm walking around doing my stuff. And your task today is, well, think of the working in this place. Think about working at St. Vinny's, and what are some advantages and what are some disadvantages of working at St. Vinny's? And then, so, we make sure that everyone knows what they're doing. Just visualise what happens, and just think about it. I'll be quiet for a second as you're visualising. You're in this class and what happens. Okay, that's it. Time's up. Okay, now putting back your practitioner hat on, what are the skills that you've been using in that class? Anyone? Hello? Hello? Okay. Hello?
Hi, Lydia. I don't know if you're in the text box, but you've got people saying listening, observing.
Right, yep.
Sharing ideas.
So what have we got? Saying, listening, observing. What other skills?
Observing.
I can't see the text box.
Skills.
Yeah, communication, definitely, yep.
Teamwork.
Any other ideas? What was that, sorry?
Teamwork.
Yep.
Problem solving.
Yep.
And Don mentions body language. I think that's probably an extremely big one.
Yeah, that comes under communication. Yeah, body language. Yep. Good.
Donna mentions leadership skills.
Absolutely. Yep.
You've got other digital literacy skills and resources.
Digital, definitely.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Look, I'm just going to cheat here and look at my list. And these are actually the employability skills that I want to refer to. Communication, teamwork, technology, problem solving, planning and organising. And that kicks in once we actually start planning the excursion. Learning. I used to always throw in, and sure whether it was supposed to or not, but a bit of homework. My favourite story is about Sayed, who was really interested in getting a job at a fruit and veg shop and thought it might be a really good place to go and for us as a class to visit on this excursion. And so he went in, and they ended up offering him a job. And he's still there, and that was like 3 years ago, and he's very happy. And he's looking at coming to do some more English in the future, which is fabulous. Initiative. Now, pretty difficult term to teach students sometimes, but you will observe initiative before your eyes. People going off and seeing what their friends doing or helping each other out. And of course, the last one is self-management, which kicks in once we go. So we go from this class. Can you see how every week you're doing a little bit of a planning activity involving your group, the mixed bag, how these employability skills and confidence start building? And so after that part of the class, sometime during, when I first did this, class was about 5 hours long, but I would grab the butcher paper, grab some blue tack and stick it up into the computer room, and students would sit where they liked at first, but then you say, well, hang on, your piece of paper's over there. You've got to negotiate. And what happens then is students actually start talking to each other because the part of the computer session is writing up a journal. So the stronger students in writing would actually be encouraged to write sentences. The ones who are still developing those skills would be able to copy, including the spelling errors and grammar errors, and then comes in the grammar and the development, and it's all contextualized. That is basically what happens in a very kind of broad sense. Now, looking at them, I can hear what actually happens in class. Now, what you'll see on the screen are a lot of words, and I don't want you to spend too much time on that, but the proposed lesson plan, and there is an attachment, and Anna I can't see it here, but she'll ensure that you'll have access to it. But the really important topics, not highlighted here, but that's okay. Things like barriers to learning, getting a job, personal skills and attributes, and what jobs did you do in your country? Doing a lot of work around what skill sets have you already got is really empowering. And then very basic goal setting, learning plans, and what are entry-level jobs and occupational health and safety. And if I haven't said this before, I'm working with our students, and ensuring that students are not going to go into a workplace if their language, literacy, numeracy skills are going to put them in any danger, so they need to have an understanding about safety, and also they need to have a strong enough level to know what is reasonable for an employer to ask of them and what is unreasonable, and so knowledge of unions and the whole stuff around fair work. And I know we've all heard about students being exploited, but moving on to the next bit, and this is the next part of the actual lesson. And I can't say how important this is. It's either group planning or project-based activity every week. My preferred task is a class excursion, and it can easily go across the course of a semester. Just think about all the sorts of different activities that you can be doing and the underpinning skills that are being developed. Group presentations. We've done that before, where various groups have presented to the rest of the class about their findings about either jobs or places that they'd like to go to. They can scribe questions, they can do role plays as to what questions they can ask once we get there. They can vote. We've done a vote before, and so there's a whole opportunity, several weeks, what is voting, how can we vote, and presenting debates and arguments and all of those things. I've mentioned homework, and I wouldn't go into doing a big drama production because I don't know whether I was lucky, but it was fabulous. And I know the development of employability skills and the language was something to be very proud of. And then our role, in addition to teaching English or literacy or numeracy, in addition, all kind of blended together, is to explain what that class is about regularly. I mean, they don't know what employability skills are, they don't know what initiative is, but if someone is demonstrating initiative or good teamwork or any of those terms, or you might have, I used to have butcher paper everywhere, attributes, and if anyone is demonstrating an attribute, and it might be honesty or authenticity, and you'd stop and explain and keep reinforcing some of these concepts. And in addition to teaching English, teachers determine what needs to be discussed or thrashed out at the weekly meetings, and we stay on track. Now, this happened once. The excursion didn't go ahead. We did all this work, but the location of the place had changed. There was no easy access to the place. It was Norma, actually in Adelaide, which is a recycling business. So if the excursion takes place, that's great, but it shouldn't be the focus of what you are doing. I developed a very small community of practice earlier this year, and it took probably 6 or 7 weeks working closely with a couple of the practitioners who were out there trialling this before the penny dropped that it really didn't matter. It's the journey, it's the process of getting there. And of course, any major decisions relating to a planned excursion as a class, and we know the importance of using collaborative and communicative approach. In a nutshell, integrates, contextualises language learning to pathways, job-seeking area, and uses project work as an important tool in developing employability skills. And it is through doing that students begin to develop language skills as well as those employability skills. I've got top 10 tips. I'm not going to read them. Become an expert. I just said I was going to read them. Become an expert. Use group work. Really critical to put thoughts on butcher paper. This is where all that interaction occurs and communication occurs. Discussions, lots of those, and of course identifying the many barriers that they might have to learning and or getting a job. And I will add an example. I had someone email me. I delivered something similar to Adult Learning Australia not that long ago via a webinar, and one of the participants talked about having C students, and they were like in the 50 to 60-year-old age group, and she felt like they were just sitting there waiting to bide their time. Would this work for them? And I thought, well, of course, don't talk about how important it is to get a job. That's up to them. But do talk about the importance of staying relevant and contributing. And it could be through voluntary work and so many other different avenues. And I'm really looking forward to seeing how that practitioner goes. Next, and I've mentioned this, understand what motivates your student. Like my parents, getting an entry-level job is really important for many of the ESL, ESOL, EALD students. I've mentioned the next one. And number 8, I tend to be fairly animated in the classroom. We certainly celebrated regularly initiative planning. And if someone got a job, wow, let's talk about it and let the students ask questions. And in a way, this is what developed that culture of, and I'll get to that. But anyhow, I did use lots of good ESL and literacy resources that had already been developed. The work was already done for me in a way, and topics were very easily found and ready to go. And I have got a list there, and I know Anna's included that as my second Word document. Be enthusiastic, positive, and have fun. I think that underpins everything I do in my teaching methodologies. And not only do the students gain the skills and the confidence, essential, the program actually helps create a culture and a mindset of, hey, I can get a job if I want one. And more to that, it's, hey, I can instead of I can't. And it's not only about work, it's, hey, I can finish this certificate. I can go on to other certificates or training. Oh, I can get a job. It's a bit of a headset shift, and it was, as I said earlier, fairly successful. It was just happening consistently. People would say, hey, I've got a job, and of course would be celebrating it, and students would be looking forward to the class on Fridays. Just to get help as well. Oh, the sick.com's giving me this, putting in 20 interviews a week. We share that stuff and find how we can best support the students. And just a very kind practitioner colleague, get 8 jobs out of the program so far. It's breathtaking. I think that was after running 3 of them, and she was pretty inspired, which I thank her very much for. And that's my final one there. Oh, boy. Did I do it in 20 minutes? Questions, please.
Elizabeth said, thanks, Lydia. That was really inspiring. And Lina has said, thank you. Awesome.
Thank you.
Really well presented. I think, as an educator, we're always looking for innovative ways to work with our adult learners, even our disengaged young youth. And sometimes those hands-on interactive programs are the best way to go with some of them. Particularly when you can see the confidence that's developing in them each week as it goes along.
Great.
And Daniela's just typed in, I can relate to recognising the importance of having fun in the classroom. Which is really important. Yeah.
Yeah, and it does help break down barriers between the students and yourself as well. And I wouldn't have believed it if I hadn't seen it myself, but the response to my little session today with the South Australian finalists for an Australian Training Award, everyone commented on it because they were all crowding around me. It was something, I'm going to be doing a LinkedIn post, and suddenly we're doing airdrop and doing this and that. And so it's kind of like getting to know your students is so important. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks very much, Lydia. I'll echo those things, and the message coming through the chat box is really, appreciative of that mindfulness of connecting to employers and staying relevant and knowing your students so that they feel like individuals. So, there's some really positive reinforcement and recognition of those messages. So thank you so much, Lydia. Thanks, Vicky, for fielding some of those questions and comments as well as we went through there. So recognising the time, I'm going to sort of bring us through towards the end here of the webinar and the AGM, our session today. So thanks again, Lydia, and thanks to Vicky, Lorraine, Don and Anna, as well as Redback Conferencing for their assistance in preparing and presenting our webinar. A big thank you to our ACAL committee members for being involved in this great organisation. I'm also going to take the opportunity, and you might have seen it flick up there, to announce that our ACAL 2020 conference will be held in Canberra. A conference planning committee has begun work on this conference, and we're looking forward to taking our message to Canberra. As we don't have a national organisation, a state organisation or territory organisation in Canberra, if you'd like to be involved with the planning committee, please do get in contact with ACAL. You'll be notified when recordings of our webinar are available, and please take the time now to complete our survey that's going to appear on your screen, and that'll assist us in planning further webinars or professional development opportunities. So on behalf of ACAL, thanks once again for everybody for attending, and that's the end of our business today. So if you can complete that survey, and then that's great. Thank you. Pleasure to be here, and